Hi everyone. So I just got back in from shooting a roll of film right here. It's a roll of ADOX 100 ISO film, and it was a bit sad because a few weeks ago the factory that makes this stuff closed its doors, so I have a fairly limited supply of that film. But it's time to develop it. So in general, here's what you're going to need for developing your exposed film: a tank in which to apply the chemicals in a light-proof environment, scissors, because you'll have to trim the ends of the film to load it, and we'll see that in just a minute, a can opener if you have a factory sealed canister, paper clothespins rather for hanging your film to dry, and a line for hanging it to dry. And I'll show you that setup later in the video. We'll go into my shower. Yay, exciting! And we'll take a look at how I dry my film. You're going to need electrician's tape if you have a metal style film developing tank. It's not a necessity. I like to tape it shut with electrician's tape because that guarantees that the lid doesn't pop off and it keeps the chemicals from dripping on my hands. And then you're going to need a light-proof bag right here. And then the last thing that's not in any way required, but a definite nice thing to have, we're going to pan over here to the sink. Magic of my studio being revealed. My sink is right next to my studio. Oh my goodness. Panning over to the sink. This is a contraption I made. We'll do a video later on how to make this. This is my film washing tank. And I'll set that up and we'll see how to use it in a subsequent video. But we'll see how to use it this video. I'll show you how to make it in a subsequent video. Sorry for all the camera jerking around here. I have here two example rolls of film. This one's just exposed film. I used it in my bulk loading video, so it's been shot for a long time. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that I accidentally loaded it in this cartridge backwards. And then I have a roll of old Seattle Filmworks film here, which can still be developed but doesn't really yield high-quality results due to the film age and the fact that the person who gave that to me stored it in their garage for 14 years in the heat and the cold. That's not a good environment for film. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to show you in just a minute how to load them onto reels, and then I'm going to disappear off camera for a bit, do the actual loading with the reel film, and then we'll come back and we'll do some chemical processing after that. So stay tuned for a minute. We'll be right back. I'm going to clean this up, and then I'll show you how to load film onto reels. The first thing you need to understand about loading film onto these reels is that in reality, everything you are about to see here has to be done in the confines of this dark bag. This will prevent light from getting into the environment where you're loading these spools. If your film gets exposed to light during this process, it will be ruined. Every image on it will be useless. You won't get anything out of it. In fact, light is so sensitive that one time I forgot to zip my dark bag and I ruined a roll of film. Or film is so sensitive to light. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, the reason I picked these two is that we have a factory-made cassette and a homemade bulk-loaded cassette. I'm going to start with a factory-made cassette. It's a good idea to grab some junk film that's already ruined, or like this stuff that's really old and not going to yield good results, to practice in the light with. And with a factory cassette, you need a church key, and you just pry it open. That didn't work. Just pry it open. There we go. Now, if this were some film I was actually concerned about, every image on this film is now shot because it's been exposed to light. So this is the whole film. This is 20 exposures. This is about 3.5 feet. So you don't actually want to do that in the dark bag. I was just showing that to you. Don't actually do that in the dark bag. You'll ruin your film in other ways. You'll get kinks in it, and these little, after processing, you'll have these little white crescents that come with film being mishandled in the dark. It just, yeah, so don't do that. That was just for demonstration. Okay, so once you've got it out of your cassette, you're going to want to cut the leader off. Your leader is about this much that you can safely cut off. Basically, imagine how much you put into the back of your camera when you are loading it, and that's about how much you can sacrifice. And cut it off so you have about a straight edge. This, for reference, is Let's call that 3.5 to 4.5 inches tops. Much more than that, you risk losing your image. Now, again, this is something you'll want to practice before you do it for real, because it's a little bit fiddly if you do it in the dark for the first time. You take the fresh edge, and you'll typically have a clip in your spool. Do that. You just clip it in, bow it. Now make sure that when you're doing this that you are not touching the bottom side of the film. This side, don't touch that on your real film. This is the emulsion. If you touch it, you'll leave fingerprints on your images. And that's very difficult to nigh impossible to get rid of. And then again, remembering doing this entirely in the dark bag, or if you don't have a dark bag, in a room with no windows and no lights on and towels under the doors. This does not want to load correctly today. There we go. And you'll notice, and you'll want to do it in a quiet environment so you can listen to the sound of the film going on to determine if you've gotten any kinks as you load it. And if I hadn't been talking for that whole time, you probably would have been able to hear some of those kinks happening that were going on there. All right, again, this is a little bit tricky in the dark sometimes. There you go. That's loaded onto that reel. Drop it in the tank. In the dark bag, I always keep the tank closed when I have film in it, just as a best practice and just to make sure that I don't screw up any of the film. I'm going to clean this area up a little bit. We'll come back and I'll show you how to do that with the reloadable cassette. Okay, so I pitched all that other stuff off to the side because we don't really need it. Also in the dark bag, you don't need to have the lid in there with you. It just gets in the way. So anyway, so I pitched it off to the side to get it out of the way. But when you're actually doing this in a dark bag, it's going to be in there kicking around. So it's best to do this when you're sitting down in real life. Now, with these reloadable cassettes, they just pop. You just pop off the bottom like a hypodermic needle. There you go. And now you have access to the film. And typically it's the other way around. Like I said, I loaded this accidentally because I just loaded it for this demonstration. This is a different style of film reel. It looks the same, but instead of having a clip in the bottom, it just has a wire U-frame. And so the film just fits in the bottom there. And then I have to put my thumb on it and pinch. It's a little bit harder to master at first, and sometimes even having mastered it, like I have not mastered these. They're a little bit more difficult to use. It can be hard to get these things started sometimes. And you'll notice I didn't cut the film on this. That's because it already had a flat edge. If it had a cut leader edge, you would want to cut it. You'll notice this film's going on much more easily than the other film. Some films load onto these reels very nicely without any problems, and some films don't. If it's a nicer, higher-end film or a thinner base, typically they load on very nicely. I have a lot of extra here. This is one problem with loading your own reels. If you load on much more than about 37 frames, you're going to end up with this whole huge thing here and a whole lot of wasted film that's just not going to process well. So this was, I didn't want to cut this film in case I need it for other future demonstrations, but once you get to the end, your film should end somewhere pretty much no later than where this ends, but a little bit before that is ideal. Then once you have this all loaded up, I'm just going to drop it in here. I'm actually not going to, but I just drop it in there. And once this is sealed, now it's safe to pull out of the dark bag. Once you have it out of the dark bag, take your electrician's tape. Okay, thumb down. Ooh, that's not, okay, the lid's on, never mind. And I like to pull the electrician's tape really tight as I'm doing this because it uses a little bit less, and I'm cheap and don't like having to buy this stuff even though it only costs 99 cents a roll or whatever it costs. I don't know. I've actually never bought a roll. I just keep finding them lying around. Anyway, so it's really tight now. That's a good seal. That's not going to fall off. The chemicals aren't going to spill out of that. So when I get to putting the chemicals in, I just put the lid on and it's ready to go. Now if you have a 2-roll tank, it's best to fill it with 2 rolls, or if you only have 1 roll you're developing and you don't have a 1-roll tank, put an empty extra reel in here, because as you're developing the film, you don't want the reel sloshing around inside the tank. That can lead to what's called surge marks on the film, where the developing chemicals surge through the perforations on the film and cause increased areas of development along the edges of the film, and it's not a good look. So I recommend either having a one reel tank, or if you don't, then putting the extra empty reel in with your single reel that you're developing. Okay, so I'm going to go develop or load this film in this dark bag here. So I've got my empty spool. This is yet a different type my empty reel. This is yet a different type of reel than we've already seen. It's got a clip in it, but a different type of, shouldn't have water in it still. Anyway, different type of clip. Tank with lid, spool of film, or cassette of film, reel of film, whatever you want to call it, and scissors. That's a reusable type cassette, so it pops off, and so I don't need to have a church key. Zip the bag shut, Velcro the flap over. I'm going to go take care of this, and we'll be back in a minute with this film ready to develop. Alright, we're back here. I have put the developer into the developing fluid into this. I thought the camera was running, and it wasn't, apparently. I'm very unhappy with myself about that. I have also gotten a stopwatch. I forgot to mention that when you do this, you're going to need a stopwatch to time yourself. We are at 1 minute and 46 seconds right now. So what you want to do is, for the first minute of developing, you'll want to invert this way for the full minute. And you're inverting on the X and the Y axes on both of them, 360 degrees each time. And then at the end of that first minute, you should have about 15 agitations in that first minute. You set it down and tap it a few times to knock any air bubbles off the film. And then for every minute after that, you invert it for 10 to 15 seconds per minute. I started about 45 seconds and ended about the minute mark. And the reason I do that is because this is 100 ISO film in D76. It has a 6 to 6.5 minute developing time. This is fairly cool to the touch right now. I didn't take a temperature. You should. You should take a temperature, because if you're less than 68 degrees or more than 72, it's really going to throw off your developing times. This feels like it's about 70 degrees to the touch. This is the developer that I made last night. If you saw the how to make developer and fixer videos that I recorded yesterday, these are the first time that I've used those chemicals in this. One more inversion. And also, so I've already run the developer, and they're off screen. I'm motioning to something off screen right now. I've already run the chemicals through the filtration with the filtered funnel right here. And I had to do it twice with the developer, actually. So what you need to do is make sure you do that until there's nothing solid left sitting in the bottom of your chemicals. We're at 3.5 minutes right now, for those of you keeping track at home. And so after we finish the developer, and I'm going to finish that off scene, then we're going to do a stop bath treatment. I'll come back for that, and then we'll do the fixer. At 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So this is going to be the last agitation. I do like to agitate these one last time before I pour out the developer. No reason really, but it does make it, it does give each minute an agitation. All right, 6 minutes. Take off the cap here. This is my developer container. I have my funnel in the spigot, in the spout, whatever you want to call it. Developer can be reused a number of times. I have a gallon and a liter in here, and I don't know exactly how many times I can reuse it, but it's something in the range of 45 to 48, I think, maybe a few more than that. I've got that in there. Put that off to the side. I'm going to put the cap underneath like that, so that this is at an angle. And you can use stop bath for this. I tend not to, because I'd be buying it and it's not needed. I just run a water rinse on my film when I'm done with it. and then I'll actually rinse it twice, and that gives me a suitable stop. After this, the developer action is going to cease developing the film. Now I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to let this actually sit for a minute, and I'm going to bring in this container. This is a chemical pouring container, just a graduated cylinder basically with a handle. And unfortunately I forgot to hit the record button for the previous video at the very beginning. So I'll show you how to do this right now. This holds about 300 ml. So I'm going to fill up about 400 ml in here right now. And I'd rather have a little bit more in here that I then have to put back in the container than not have enough and risk damaging the developing half of the film, for instance, or fixing half of the film. That's a really good way to screw up perfectly good film. I'm going to pour out this water. The other nice thing about not using stop bath is it's one less chemical that's getting poured down my drain, because stop bath is not reusable. For developing prints, I use stop bath, but not for film. So I'm going to pour this in here. Fixer, if it's good, has no smell. If your fixer has a smell to it, it's spoiled and should just be disposed of properly. Don't ask me how to dispose of it properly. It's a hazardous chemical, and it has different rules and regulations for every state, country, municipality, whatever. So make sure that when you dispose of it, you're disposing of it in accordance with your local regulations. Alright, we are at 8 minutes and 49 seconds total developing time. Fixer agitation doesn't have to be as regimented as the developer agitation. So what I do is I'm going to fix this. This is a brand new batch of fix. First time I've used it. And after this roll is developed, the fix is going back in there because it's good for about 40 to 50 rolls with increasing fixing times. But this will fix for about 5 minutes. Agitating it right now. And then I'll agitate it again in about 2 minutes. And then once again right before, actually I'm sorry, I do not agitate the fix right before I pour it out. Then again at the 2 minute mark. And then I'll pour it out. And then I'm going to wash it. And I'm going to show you a contraption I made myself for washing. And this will be the first time I actually use it for washing film. So we're going to find out if it works live on YouTube. It'll be exciting. So I apologize for the shaky cam that's going to happen. I figured while that film is fixing, I'd show you how we're going to dry it. This is my bathroom, and don't laugh. That's a heavy-duty wreath suction cup on the wall there, and a rope coming off of it, going to 2 paper clips, because you need 2 paper clips per reel of 35mm, per roll of 35mm film. 4 paper clips per roll for 120 film, and I'll show you why when we get to the drying stage. Shower cleaner, yay! Let's cut that. I can't get that logo out of there. Anyway, then there's another wreath suction cup on the other end, and so the cord goes between them. Now I used to wash my film from my shower head, and it was highly, highly effective. Basically, I'd stopped doing it because that's like 4 gallons a minute or something like that, and it's about a 15 to 20 minute wash, which is a lot of wasted water. The method we're going to show you when we get back to the kitchen is much, much more efficient. But this is a good way to dry your film because you can leave it to hang dry and the water can drip off of it into your tub where it can be effectively washed away before your next shower. I'm not going to show you the bottom of the tub because it's filthy, and I'm sure that doesn't really bother you in the slightest. At least I hope it doesn't. All right, back to the kitchen. All right, we're back at the kitchen. We're at the 16-minute mark. 16 minutes. That's how long it... Let me make sure we got that in there. Maybe 16 minutes. That's how long it takes to stop, reset, home. I use this old cell phone. It doesn't have any service anymore. The antenna's shot on it because it has a kickstand and it's easy to read the digits. Anyway. So it's been 16 minutes. This stuff's now been fixing for about 8, which is ample with this film and a fresh batch of fixer. As your fixer gets older, you need to increase it. If you're using T-Max film, it needs a minimum 10 minutes of fixing time with a number of agitations in it, and that fixer should not be reused when you're done with it. This film is pretty fixer friendly. It fixes easily, sets up easily, and responds very well to fixing in a very short period of time. So I'm going to pour the fixer back out into because I can reuse this fixer. And the nice thing about fixer is it doesn't stick to the film. So there's basically, if there's any fixer left on the film, it's a very negligible amount, maybe a drop or two, if that. And the interesting thing to me about fixer is I've used fixer for far, far longer than I should have, and the volume never decreases. It just does not stick to film. So I've done an initial rinse and set the tape over there. And now we're going to expose this to light, so let's hope we've done everything correctly. And I'm looking at it right now, I can see clear here, and then frames, which means that it has been fixed, or it's been developed and fixed correctly. If it had not been fixed correctly, the images would just disappear into a disgusting catastrophe of errors. Now I'm going to take off the aerator on my sink here. This is an attachment that goes on my sink that allows me to hook up a garden hose to it. And here's the garden hose. I had to get this attachment at a hardware store. And I can never remember how to screw this thing on. I've only done a bench test with this. This will be the first actual trial for this contraption. What we're going to do is we're going to take that knot and run it up through the center of the spool. Said we're going to run it up through the center of the spool. The spool does not like this idea one bit. This worked just fine with the other spools, the ones that I tried it on. Okay. Now we're going to hang it from this crossbeam. And like I said, we're going to do a video, not tonight, in the coming weeks, about how to make this contraption. And this whole get-up cost me about 20 bucks. Turn on the water, and it's going to take this thing somewhere in the vicinity of about 10 to 12 seconds to fill up, which means that in a 10-minute wash, that this is going to, which is about the amount of time that film needs to wash. This is going to go through 60 volumes of water, which is more than enough to get rid of all the chemicals. There we go. Fills up. And the other thing you can do, if you're really interested in it, is some people will use photo flow on their film. I use dish soap. It's better when there's no water in it. So I'm just going to put a little more in. There we go. Dish soap and photo flow basically do the exact same thing. As long as the film gets the soap on it, what will happen is that that's going to release the chemicals, or help release the chemicals from the film. As an added advantage, if you use the right soap, it makes your film smell nice. No, it really doesn't do that. Anyway, so we're going to let this wash. We're going to come back in about 10 minutes and take a look at hanging it to dry and checking the results. Hi everyone, we're back. It's been actually about 18 or 20 minutes that this has been washing. I turned it down. I turned the faucet down basically to a trickle so that instead of flushing out 6 to 8 volumes of water a minute, it's flushing about 1.5 to 2. I did that after about a minute, and I'm sure that the results will basically be the same. I meant to come back sooner, but just forgot. So now, the easiest way to drain this is going to be to simply unscrew the hose and let gravity and hydraulic pressure do the rest for me there. Going to, it sinks, don't need that right now. And try to get this out from inside. Don't need that. Now that is a very high quality wash. Let me assure you, this is really good. There's no fixer left on it. I have tried a few other things for washing, and when I do the video explaining how to make this, I'll show you some of the other things that you can do to wash your film. But this is the best wash I've ever gotten on a roll of film. So with that, we're going to adjourn now to hang this film to dry, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, back in the bathroom, got the two clothespins up here. What we're going to do is we're going to unroll all this film. All this film, 36 frames, is very long. Set the reel down. Make sure that when you're doing this that the film does not touch whatever you're drying it in. Going to fold over the top of the film. Don't let the film touch the image that's at the top there as you fold this over. These images need to be open to the air to dry. But I fold it like this so that when I take the clothespin off, it stays up here and doesn't fall to the bathroom, to the tub floor and get dust and dirt on it. Next thing I'm going to do is go to the bottom of the film, down here. Oh, there's some emulsion damage to that negative from loading it onto the, oh well, at least that's not a very good shot. Okay, I'm going to fold that over like that, and that makes it just a little bit thicker to help the clothespin stay on. Oh, that's emulsion damage from when I loaded the knot through the dang it. That's from the washer. And now I'm going to turn on the bathroom fan after I cut this video and leave this here for half an hour to an hour to dry. The air circulating from the bathroom fan will help this dry a little bit more quickly. The soap that I put on it when it was washing will help it to dry without hard watermarks. Where I live, there's fairly hard water, and so it will leave marks. Even using soap or photo flow or something like that, it still sometimes leaves marks. And then after this, next you just need to print it or scan it. I scan it, or do whatever you want to do with it. But this is the process from start to finish for how to develop film. If you've done this a few times and you get good at it, I can do 8 rolls of film in half an hour, loading them all at the same time, developing them all at the same time, but that's about the limit. Beyond that, I have to break it into multiple batches just based on how much chemical volume I can store. Fairly straightforward. Please post any comments you have with questions or requests for clarifications, or even if you spot something that you don't agree with or you think I might have stated incorrectly. And I try to respond as quickly as I can, and I'm really glad to see your comments when you post them. So let me know also any other things you'd like to know about photography, and I will see if I have the knowledge to make a video about it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope that you've learned something about home processing of your own black and white film.